The chamber was silent except for the hum of translation devices. Ambassador Elena Volkov stood in the center of the circular room, surrounded by representatives from 17 different species. Above her, the dome showed the stars, cold and infinite. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, her face neutral. She had been a soldier once. She knew how to stand at attention while the world burned around her. The Thar ambassador spoke first. Its crystalline body refracted light in sharp angles as it moved. The human colony at Kepler Station responded to illegal corporate action with violence. 300 Vryn citizens are dead. Elena's jaw tightened. The Vryn tried to seize a human settlement by force. We defended ourselves. Defended? The Vryn representative clicked forward on 6 legs, its mandibles spreading wide. You slaughtered them. Your species shows a capacity for violence that terrifies this council. You come from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. Your planet tried to kill you for your entire evolution. You learned to kill back. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Elena had heard this before. Earth's classification as a Deathworld had been a shock to the galaxy. Most species evolved on gentle worlds with low gravity, mild weather, and few predators. Earth was a nightmare by their standards. Heavy gravity, extreme weather, diseases, predators everywhere. Humans had climbed to the top of the food chain by being more stubborn and vicious than anything else. We survive, Elena said quietly. That's what we do. The Dalzim delegate floated in its water tank, its voice bubbling through speakers. That is precisely what concerns us. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 30 years. Already there have been 12 incidents of human violence. Your species does not negotiate. You dominate. That's not true, Elena started, but the Thar cut her off. The evidence speaks. This council has debated for 3 cycles. We cannot allow humanity to expand freely. You are too dangerous. Elena felt ice in her stomach. She had expected sanctions, trade restrictions, maybe even a quarantine. But the way they looked at her, the fear in their alien eyes told her something worse was coming. The Vryn delegation has proposed a solution, the Thar continued. One that satisfies justice without requiring execution. The Vryn ambassador moved to the center display. A hologram appeared. A planet. It looked wrong. The atmosphere was thick with storms. The surface showed active volcanoes. Red text blinked above it. Class 15. Deathworld. Elena's breath caught. Class 15. She had never heard of a Class 15. Designation KX-117, the Vryn said, and there was satisfaction in its clicking voice. Gravity is 1.8 times Earth standard. The atmosphere is breathable, but toxic flora covers 80% of the landmass. The fauna includes apex, predators in every ecological zone. Seismic activity is constant. Temperature swings reach 70 degrees within a single day cycle. No species has ever survived there longer than 3 months. You're sentencing us to death, Elena said flatly. We are giving you a chance, the Thar replied. Your entire colony at Kepler Station, all 50,000 humans, will be relocated to KX-117. You will be provided with basic supplies and 3 months of rations. After that, you will be on your own. If humanity can survive there, perhaps you will prove you deserve a place in the galaxy. If not, the crystalline being's light flickered. Then the problem solves itself. Elena looked around the chamber. Every ambassador avoided her gaze. They had already decided. This was theater. How long do you give us? She asked. Honestly? 6 weeks. Perhaps less. The Vryn's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. KX-117 will kill you faster than we ever could. Elena was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the 50,000 people at Kepler Station. Families, children, engineers and farmers and teachers. People who had left Earth looking for a better life and instead found a galaxy that feared them. She thought about Earth. Beautiful, terrible Earth. A planet that had thrown everything at humanity, ice ages and plagues and predators and disasters, and humanity had survived them all. Not by being strongest or fastest, by being too stubborn to die. "We accept your verdict," Elena said. The council members shifted in surprise. They had expected pleading, begging. Elena met the Vrin ambassador's cluster of eyes. "We'll go to your Deathworld. We'll take our 50,000 people and we'll make it work." She smiled then, and it was not a kind smile. "And when we do, when we're still alive and thriving on a planet that's supposed to be impossible, I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you tried to kill us by exile because you were too afraid to face us directly." The Thar's light flickered with what might have been anger. "This council is adjourned. Transportation will be arranged within the week." As the ambassadors filed out, the Dulzim floated closer to Elena's platform. "I am sorry," it bubbled quietly. "I voted against this, but I was outnumbered." "I know," Elena said. She did know. She had counted the votes before they were cast. "It's not your fault." "What will you do?" Elena looked up at the hologram of KX-117, still rotating slowly in the center of the chamber. Storms raged across its surface. It looked angry. It looked impossible. "What we always do," she said. "Survive." The Dulzim swam away, leaving Elena alone in the vast chamber. She stood there for a long time, staring at the planet that was supposed to be her species' grave. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she was already planning, already adapting. They wanted to send humans to hell. They didn't understand that humans had been there before. Elena tapped her communication device. "Get me colony command at Kepler Station. Tell them to start packing. We're moving." "Where to, Ambassador?" She looked at the storm-wrapped planet one more time. "Home," she said. "We're going home." The colony ship broke through the atmosphere of KX-117 like a stone hitting water. The entire hull screamed with stress as electrical storms hammered the shields. Inside, 50,000 humans held on to whatever they could reach while their world shook apart. Elena gripped the command chair armrest and watched the view screen. Below them, the planet revealed itself in all its hostile glory. Purple and black vegetation covered rolling hills. Mountains spat fire into the toxic sky. The ocean thrashed with waves that could swallow cities. Everything about the planet screamed danger. "Gravity reading confirmed at 1.8 standard," the pilot called out. "Air is breathable, but scanners show toxic compounds in the vegetation. Landing zone ahead is the most stable area we could find." "Most stable meaning what?" Elena asked. "Only 2 active fault lines and minimal megafauna activity." "Minimal?" "Compared to the rest of the planet, yes, ma'am." Elena almost laughed. They were landing on a nightmare and the pilot was grading on a curve. The ship touched down hard. The landing gear sank into soft ground. For a moment, everyone was still. Then Marcus Chen, the chief engineer, unbuckled from his seat with a grunt. The increased gravity pulled at him immediately. He stumbled and caught himself. "Well," he said, breathing hard, "this is going to take some getting used to." Dr. Sarah Okonkwo was already at her sensor station, pulling up environmental data. "Temperature is 38 degrees. In 6 hours, it'll drop to -10. The day cycle here is 16 hours. We'll need insulated shelters immediately." "Security Chief Morrison, get your teams ready," Elena ordered. "I want a perimeter established before we unload civilians. Chen, get the prefab shelters online. Okonkwo, I need to know what on this planet can kill us and in what order." "That's going to be a long list, Ambassador. Then you'd better start writing." The loading ramp opened and the first humans stepped onto KX-117. The gravity hit them like a physical blow. Some fell to their knees. Others managed to stay standing but looked like they were carrying heavy packs. The air smelled wrong, thick, and organic like rotting plants and something sharper underneath. James Morrison led his security team down the ramp. He was a big man, built like a tank, but even he moved carefully in the heavy gravity. His team fanned out with weapons ready. Military grade, not the civilian tools the council thought they were providing. Humans had learned a long time ago to keep their best weapons secret. Movement at 2 o'clock, one of the guards called out. Something was coming through the tree line. It was big, 4 meters tall at least, moving on 6 legs with a body like armored plating. Its head was all teeth and sensors. An apex predator. The galaxy's observers watching from orbit probably expected the humans to panic. Morrison brought his rifle up. Spread out, crossfire pattern, aim for the joints. The creature charged. It was fast, despite its size. The humans opened fire. Plasma bolts hit the armored hide and most bounced off. But Morrison's team had fought before. They knew how to hunt. They aimed for the legs, for the gaps in the armor, for the softer tissue around the head. The creature went down thrashing. Morrison approached carefully and put 3 more shots into its skull. The thrashing stopped. "Get a sample to Dr. Okonkwo," Morrison ordered, "and somebody check if this thing is edible." Above them on the observation ship, the alien watchers were recording everything. One of the Vrin officers clicked nervously. "They killed it. They killed an apex predator within 10 minutes of landing, noted in the report," the Thar commander said quietly. "But this proves nothing. Wait until nightfall. Wait until the temperature drops and the real predators come out." Down on the surface, the humans were working. Prefab shelters went up in record time. Teams moved with military efficiency because most of them had military training. Elena had made sure of that when selecting the colony. The galaxy thought they were exiling farmers and families. They were. But they were also exiling engineers who could build fortifications, doctors who had worked in war zones, and soldiers who knew how to fight on hostile ground. By the time the sun started to set, a sun that was too blue and too bright, the colony had a defensive perimeter. Electric fences powered by portable generators, guard towers at the corners, sensor nets to detect movement, and in the center, the shelters arranged in a grid pattern that could be defended from multiple angles. The temperature dropped fast. Within an hour, it went from hot to freezing. The humans sealed themselves into heated shelters and waited. The predators came at full dark. Sensors lit up with contacts. Dozens of them. Things that crawled and flew and ran on too many legs. They threw themselves at the electric fence and died in bursts of sparks. But more kept coming. The guards in the towers opened fire, their weapons lighting up the night. In the medical shelter, something unexpected happened. A woman named Lisa Chen went into labor. Dr. Okonkwo left the sensor data and ran to help. The shelter was warm, but the sound of weapons fire and screaming creatures was everywhere. Lisa screamed too, but for different reasons. 3 hours later, while the battle still raged outside, a baby girl was born. "She's healthy," Okonkwo said, wrapping the infant in thermal blankets. "Strong lungs." Lisa held her daughter close, tears on her face. What kind of world did we bring her into? Elena had come to check on them. She stood in the doorway of the medical shelter, listening to the sounds of combat outside. "A hard one," she said honestly. "But we've survived hard before." "What should I name her?" Lisa asked. Elena thought for a moment. She thought about the Council's expectations, about how they assumed this world would kill them all, about 50,000 humans who refused to die just because someone expected them to. "Hope," Elena said. "Name her Hope." The night lasted 8 hours. By dawn, the perimeter was surrounded by dead creatures. The humans had lost 3 people, 2 to predator attacks and 1 to a heart attack from the stress and gravity. But they had held. Morrison stood on the wall as the sun rose, looking at the carnage. "We killed maybe 200 of them, and learned how they hunt," Elena said beside him. "Tonight we'll be ready." That evening, around portable heaters, the colonists gathered. Someone had salvaged a guitar from the cargo. A woman started playing. She sang an old Earth song about surviving hard times. Others joined in, their voices carried across the alien landscape. In orbit, the observers listened to the transmission. The Thar commander was very quiet. "Send this to the Council," it said finally. "Tell them the humans are not dying. Tell them they're singing." The Vrin officer's mandibles clicked nervously. "What does that mean?" "It means we made a terrible mistake," the Thar said. "It means they're adapting." 6 months after landfall, the Galactic Council received a transmission from KX-117. The Thar ambassador gathered the council members in the same chamber, where they had sentenced humanity to exile. They expected to review final recordings. Death, certificates, maybe a plea for emergency rescue of any survivors. The transmission began with Elena Volkov's face. She looked different, thinner, harder. There was a scar on her left cheek that hadn't been there before, but her eyes were steady, and her voice was calm. This is Ambassador Elena Volkov of the human colony on KX-117. We are transmitting our 6-month status report as required by the exile terms. The VRIN representative clicked forward. They're still alive? Current population, 50,217. We've had 68 deaths from various causes, but we've also had 285 births. The council chamber erupted in shocked sounds. The Dulzim's tank bubbled frantically. Athar's crystals dimmed in disbelief. Population growth. On a Class 15 Deathworld, Elena continued as if she couldn't hear their reactions. We have established permanent settlements in 3 locations. Primary colony covers 20 square kilometers and includes residential zones, agricultural centers, and manufacturing facilities. We are transmitting comprehensive geological surveys, botanical studies, and resource assessments. The data began flooding into the council's systems, reports, charts, videos. The council members watched in growing horror as the information displayed. The video showed human children playing in what looked like a schoolyard, but it was surrounded by thick walls. Guard towers at the corners. The children wore light armor like it was normal clothing. They laughed and ran in the heavy gravity like they had been born to it. Another clip showed farming. Humans had carved fields from the toxic vegetation. They grew earth crops modified to survive the harsh conditions. Dr. Okonkwo appeared in this video, walking through rows of plants. We've successfully adapted 23 earth species to local conditions, she said to the camera. Wheat, corn, potatoes, soybeans. We've also begun cultivating local flora after determining which compounds are useful. 3 native plants produce oils we can refine into fuel. 2 others have medicinal properties. We're learning to use what the planet provides. The next video made several council members recoil. It showed massive creatures in pens. The same apex predators that had attacked the colony on the first night. But these were behind electrified fences and humans were feeding them. Marcus Chen appeared in this segment. Domestication is going slower than we hoped, he said, gesturing to the penned creatures. But we've succeeded with the younger specimens. The adults are too aggressive, but if you raise them from birth, they bond with handlers. We're calling them razorbacks because, well, look at them. In another few generations, we might be able to use them as work animals. They're strong enough to pull heavy equipment in this gravity. A VRIN council member made a strangled sound. They're domesticating the apex predators. Humans domesticated wolves, another ambassador whispered. On their own Deathworld. Why are we surprised? The video shifted to construction zones. Humans in heavy exosuits were building structures from local materials. Not temporary shelters anymore. Permanent buildings with thick walls and reinforced foundations. One structure looked like a fusion reactor. Another was clearly a manufacturing plant. We've achieved energy independence, Chen continued. Geothermal is abundant thanks to the seismic activity. We've also built wind farms. The constant storms mean we never lack for wind. Solar is less reliable due to cloud cover, but supplements our grid during clear days. Elena's face returned to the screen. Behind her, through a window, they could see the colony. Lights everywhere, buildings, roads, vehicles moving between structures. It looked like a thriving settlement. We are no longer dependent on council support or supplies, Elena said. KX-117 has everything we need. We have renamed our world. We call it New Reckoning. She paused. The council sent us here to die. We understand that. You feared what we might become and tried to bury us on a world that would do the job for you. Her expression hardened. But we didn't die. We built something, and now we're claiming this world as human sovereign territory, under galactic colonization law. Any ship entering our orbit without permission will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent. Finally, the Thar ambassador spoke. "How is this possible?" The Dulzim's voice bubbled softly. "They are from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. They spent their entire evolution learning to survive impossible conditions." "But this is Class 15, the Vryn insisted. "Nothing survives Class 15. "Nothing except humans, apparently," a small ambassador said. It was from a species that rarely spoke in council. "We made a mistake. We gave them exactly what they're good at, survival against impossible odds." The Thar pulled up the human casualty reports. 68 deaths in 6 months. Construction accidents mostly, predator attacks, 3 from disease before they developed treatments. But look at this. The death rate is declining each month. They're learning, adapting. "And the births," the Dulzim added. 285. They're not just surviving, they're growing. One of the videos was replayed. It showed humans around a fire pit in the evening. The temperature had dropped to freezing, but they wore thermal clothing and seemed comfortable. They were eating meat from local predators and drinking something hot from metal cups. Someone was playing music. Children were dancing. And they were laughing. "Play the ending again," the Vryn said quietly. The technician complied. Elena's final statement filled the chamber once more. "You wanted us gone. We're gone. But we're not dead. New reckoning is ours now. And if you think you can take it from us, then you didn't learn anything from the Kepler station incident. We don't give up what's ours. We don't surrender. We don't break." She leaned closer to the camera. "Earth tried to kill us for 200,000 years. What made you think one more planet would make a difference?" The transmission ended again. The council sat in silence for a long moment. "What do we do?" a junior ambassador asked. The Thar's light flickered uncertainly. "I don't know. We sent them to a world no one can claim. No one can live there except them. We gave them a fortress. No one can assault. We made them untouchable," the Dulzim said quietly. The Vryn representative who had proposed the exile in the first place had not spoken. Now it moved forward slowly, its mandibles clicking in what might have been distress. "I thought we were being merciful. I thought we were giving them a chance to prove themselves or die honorably." "You gave them exactly what they wanted," the Thar said. "A world the galaxy fears too much to touch. A place where they can grow without interference." Its crystalline structure flickered with what might have been respect or fear. "You gave them freedom." The council adjourned with nothing resolved. As they left, the Dulzim swam close to the viewing screen where Elena's face was frozen in final frame. "She said they would send us a postcard," it bubbled quietly. "I think this was it." On New Reckoning, Elena stood on the wall of the colony and looked out at the alien landscape. The sun was setting again. The temperature was dropping. Soon the predators would come, but the defenses were better now. The humans were better now. "Think they got the message?" Morrison asked beside her. "Oh yes," Elena said. "They got it loud and clear. And now they know. We're not going anywhere. This is home now." Below them, in the colony, life continued. People working, children playing, families eating dinner together, a whole community adapting to a world that was supposed to be unsurvivable. Hope, now 6 months old, was crying in the medical center. Her mother sang to her, an Earth lullaby about stars and dreams and finding your way home. On a Class 15 Deathworld, humanity was putting down roots. 2 years after the exile, New Reckoning was thriving. The population had grown to 75,000. Some came from Earth, volunteers who wanted to prove something to the galaxy. Others were born there, children who knew no other home than the Deathworld. Elena now held the title of governor. She stood in her office watching the colony through reinforced windows. Buildings stretched to the horizon. Factories, schools, parks with armored playgrounds where children played under the watchful eyes of guard towers. It was a strange kind of normal, but it was theirs. Marcus Chen entered without knocking. "We've got a problem." "What kind?" "The good kind, maybe." He pulled up a hologram. "We've been refining Deathworld survival technology for our own use. Gravity-resistant materials, toxin filters, gene therapies to help people adapt faster. Turns out other species have noticed." The hologram showed trade inquiries, dozens of them, species offering resources in exchange for human technology. Elena raised an eyebrow. "The galaxy that exiled us wants to buy from us? Apparently surviving impossible conditions is profitable." Chen grinned. "We could name our price." But Elena was reading another message. This one was marked urgent and private, from the Thar homeworld. "This is different," she said quietly. The message was a plea. The Thar were facing an ecological disaster. A predator species on their world had evolved rapidly, becoming more aggressive and resistant to their control methods. It was spreading across their colonies. The Thar, who had never needed to fight for survival, were helpless against it. They were asking humanity for help. "It's a trap," Morrison said when Elena showed him the message. "They exile us, and now they want us to come. Running when they have problems?" "Maybe," Elena admitted. "Or maybe they're desperate enough to swallow their pride." "What's the price?" Chen asked. Elena smiled coldly. "Everything. Full recognition of New Reckoning as sovereign territory, a council seat, and an official apology." She sent the reply. To her surprise, the Thar agreed to all terms within 6 hours. 3 weeks later, a small human ship entered orbit around the Thar homeworld. The team was small, 12 specialists led by Morrison. They were experts in hunting, tracking, and killing things that didn't want to die. On Earth, they might have been called exterminators. Here, they were Deathworld specialists. The Thar representative who met them was crystalline and nervous. Its light flickered with anxiety. "Thank you for coming. We have lost 17 colonies to the creatures. They breed faster than we can contain them." Morrison looked at the briefing data. The creatures were called skrills. They looked like a cross between Earth insects and reptiles. Fast, aggressive, adaptable. They attacked in swarms and their bite carried paralytic venom. "How have you been fighting them?" Morrison asked. "We deploy automated defenses, drones, energy barriers." "And they're not working?" "The skrills learn. They find ways through our defenses." Morrison exchanged looks with his team. "Of course they do. They're predators. They evolve." He pulled up tactical maps. "All right. Show us the worst infestation zone." The Thar took them to a colony that had been abandoned. Buildings stood empty. The ground was covered with skrill burrows. The creatures moved in the shadows, clicking and hissing. "Your people evacuated?" Morrison asked. "Yes. We lost only 38 citizens before we withdrew." Morrison didn't comment on how the Thar considered 38 deaths worth evacuating an entire colony. On New Reckoning, they'd lost that many in the first week and kept fighting. "All right," he said. "Here's how this works. We don't hide behind barriers, we hunt." Over the next 3 months, the human team taught the Thar how to fight, not with drones and automated systems, with tactics, strategy, understanding your enemy. They taught them to think like predators. The humans tracked skrill movement patterns, found their breeding grounds, learned their behavior. Then they struck, not at random encounters. At the heart of the infestation, the Thar watched in horrified fascination as Morrison's team moved through skrill territory. The humans wore light armor and carried weapons designed for close combat. They moved in small groups covering each other. When skrills attacked, the humans didn't retreat, they counterattacked. "They're insane," one Thar observer said. "They're fighting in melee range." "They're effective," another replied quietly. The humans cleared the colony in 6 weeks. They eliminated the breeding queens, collapsed the burrows, and hunted down the remaining skrills. Then they taught the Thar how to maintain the defenses. "You can't just rely on technology," Morrison explained to the Thar security forces. "The creatures adapt. You need to adapt faster, learn how they think, predict their moves, be more aggressive than they are. The Thar security chief's light flickered uncertainly. This is not our way. Then change your way, or the Skrills will keep winning. By the end of 3 months, the Skrill population was under control. The Thar had learned not just how to fight this specific threat, but how to think differently about threats in general. It was a fundamental shift in their culture. As Morrison's team prepared to leave, the Thar representative approached Elena, who had arrived for the formal recognition ceremony. "Your methods are brutal," the Thar said, "but effective. We are grateful." "Don't thank us," Elena said. "Pay us. And remember this the next time you think humans are too dangerous to be trusted." Word spread fast through the galaxy. Humanity had solved a problem no one else could. Within months, other species were quietly approaching New Reckoning with their own impossible situations. A mining colony on a high-gravity world needed help establishing permanent structures. Human engineers arrived and did in 6 weeks what the other species had failed to do in years. An agricultural world was facing soil contamination that killed all their crops. Human xenobotanists introduced modified earth plants that not only survived, but cleaned the soil. A research station was being harassed by local predators. Human security teams established defenses and taught the researchers how to coexist with the wildlife. Every mission succeeded. Every time humans proved they could handle conditions that other species found impossible. Back on New Reckoning, Elena stood before the colony in the central square. It was the 2-year anniversary of their arrival. Thousands gathered to hear her speak. "When we came here, they thought they were burying us," Elena said. "They sent us to a world that was supposed to kill us. They expected us to beg for mercy or die quietly." She paused. "We did neither. We built. We survived. We thrived." The crowd cheered. Children who had been born here. Adults who had grown stronger in the heavy gravity. Families who had made this Deathworld home. "Now the galaxy comes to us for help," Elena continued. "The same species who feared us now need us, and we help them, not because we forgive what they did, but because we're better than they thought. We're better than they feared." She looked out at her people. Survivors. All of them. "They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds." The cheering was deafening. That night, the colony celebrated. Music and food and stories. Children ran through the streets while adults watched from fortified positions. It was a strange life, but it was theirs. In orbit, the observation ship recorded everything. The Thar commander sent one final report to the council. "Humanity has become indispensable. They solve problems we cannot. They survive where we cannot. They have earned their place in the galaxy. I recommend full council membership with all rights and privileges." The vote was scheduled for the following month. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was the reason why. 5 years after the exile, the Galactic Council reconvened in the same chamber where they had sentenced humanity to death. Elena Volkov stood in the center once again, but everything was different now. She wore formal diplomatic attire bearing the seal of New Reckoning. She stood taller, stronger from years in heavy gravity, and she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives from 3 other human colonies, all established on Class 12 and higher death worlds. The Thar ambassador called the session to order. "We gather to vote on humanity's petition for full council membership. The floor recognizes Ambassador Volkov." Elena stepped forward. 5 years ago, you sent 50,000 humans to die on a Class 15 death world. You were afraid of us. Afraid of our capacity for violence. Our refusal to submit." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. "You were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons you thought." She activated a holographic display. It showed New Reckoning. No longer a struggling colony, but a thriving city. Population 112,000, infrastructure, industry, culture. "We didn't just survive your death sentence. We built a civilization. We took a world that was supposed to be impossible and made it home. And we didn't stop there." The display shifted to show 3 other worlds. Human colonies on extreme planets. We've established settlements on 3 other Class 12 worlds. Planets rich in resources that no other species can access because they're too dangerous. We're extracting minerals, growing food, and developing technologies in places you can't reach." The Vryn representative clicked forward, its mandibles spreading. "This is precisely why we should deny membership. Humanity is becoming too powerful, too independent. You don't need us." "You're right," Elena said bluntly. "We don't need you. We proved that 5 years ago, but you need us." She changed the display. It showed a list of every species humanity had helped in the past 3 years. The Thar and their skrill problem, the Keln mining crisis, the Yutani crop failure, a dozen other incidents where human expertise had solved problems no one else could. "We've become the galaxy's specialists in impossible problems," Elena continued, "because we come from an impossible world. Earth taught us to survive. You taught us that survival isn't enough. You taught us to thrive despite everything working against us." The Dulzim's tank bubbled thoughtfully. "The question before the Council is not whether humanity has proven capable. Clearly they have. The question is whether we want a species this dangerous within our governing body." "Dangerous to whom?" Elena asked. "Have we attacked anyone? Have we expanded aggressively? No. We help species who ask for help. We trade fairly. We follow galactic law." She paused. "The only violence we've committed was in self-defense or in defense of others." A smaller ambassador spoke up. "But your capacity for violence remains. You come from a death world. Violence is in your nature." "Yes," Elena agreed. "It is, but so is cooperation, community, compassion. Earth didn't just teach us to kill, it taught us to work together, to build things, to protect each other. You see our capacity for violence and miss everything else we are." The debate went on for hours. Some species argued for humanity's inclusion, others argued against. The chamber was divided almost evenly. Then something happened that no one expected. Alarms blared. A new contact had entered council space. Something big. The chamber's displays automatically switched to show tactical data. A fleet, unknown configuration. Dozens of ships moving toward the council station. The Thar's light flickered in alarm. "Who are they?" "Unknown species," the tactical officer reported. "They're not responding to hails. Energy signatures show weapons charging." Panic rippled through the council. They had not faced a military threat in generations. Their defense fleet was small and primarily ceremonial. The unknown ships were clearly hostile and heavily armed. Elena was already moving. She activated her communicator. "This is Volkov to all human ships in system. We have a hostile contact. All vessels respond." "Governor, this is the Reckoning," a voice responded immediately. "We rid 12 human ships in range. Defense protocols: protect the council station. Engage only if they fire first. Show them what we can do." The human ships moved with precision that shocked the council. They had been in system, human merchants, and diplomats, but now they moved like a military fleet. Fast, coordinated, deadly. The unknown fleet opened fire on the station. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked across space. The council's shields flickered under the assault. But before the second volley could hit, the human ships were there. They moved in patterns the other species had never seen. Earth combat tactics, translated to space. Covering fire, flanking maneuvers, focus fire on priority targets. The humans didn't have the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. But they fought like they had been born to it. Because they had. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The hostile fleet tried to adapt, but humans had been fighting opponents that adapted for their entire history. Every move the enemy made, the humans countered. When 3 hostile ships tried to break through to the station, 2 human vessels put themselves directly in the line of fire. They took damage but held position until reinforcements arrived. 1 human ship was destroyed. 23 humans died. But the hostile fleet broke and retreated. The council station was safe. In the chamber, the representatives watched in stunned silence. They had just seen humans fight to protect them, die to protect them, not because they had to, but because it was the right thing to do. Elena was receiving casualty reports, her face grim. The destroyer Freedom's call was lost with all hands. They died for us, the Dulzim bubbled quietly. They barely know us, and they died for us. The Thar ambassador's light flickered with something that might have been shame. 5 years ago, we sent them to die. Today they died saving us. Elena looked at the council. You asked what kind of species we are. Now you know. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we come from a death world and violence is part of who we are. But so is loyalty. So is sacrifice. So is standing between the innocent and the threat, even when we barely know them. She gestured to the tactical display, still showing the aftermath of the battle. You can vote to keep us out of the council. We'll survive. We'll keep building our colonies and living our lives. But when the next crisis comes, and it will, ask yourselves who you want standing beside you. Species who've never faced real danger, or humans who've been fighting since before we left the caves. The vote was called immediately. No more debate, no more discussion. Every species that had argued against humanity now voted in favor. The measure passed unanimously. Elena Volkov was officially recognized as humanity's first council ambassador. New Reckoning was recognized as sovereign territory. 3 other human colonies were granted the same status. Humanity was no longer exiled. They were full members of the galactic community. As the session ended, the Thar ambassador approached Elena privately. I owe you an apology. We sent you to die because we were afraid. We were wrong. Yes. You were, Elena said without softness. But we're past that now. The question is what happens next. What do you mean? The galaxy is bigger than this council, more dangerous. There are threats out there you've never faced because you've been protected. Comfortable. Humanity can help with that. But we need you to trust us. Really trust us. After today? I think we do. The memorial service for the Freedom's Call was held on New Reckoning. 23 names carved into stone. 23 humans who died protecting species that had once tried to kill them. The entire colony attended. Even council representatives traveled to the Deathworld to pay respects. Elena stood before the monument with hope at her side. The little girl was 5 now, strong and healthy. She had been born on this world and knew no other home. She laid flowers at the base of the memorial, flowers that humans had engineered to survive the harsh conditions. Why did they die? Hope asked. To protect people who needed help, Elena said. Were they friends? Not yet, but they could have been. Hope thought about this. Is that why we came here? To make friends? Elena smiled sadly. No, sweetheart. We came here because we had nowhere else to go. But maybe that's how we make friends. By proving we're worth knowing. That night the colony gathered as they did every year on the anniversary. But this time, they weren't celebrating survival. They were celebrating belonging. They sang songs, from Earth and from New Reckoning. Old songs and new ones. Songs about struggle and triumph and finding home in the strangest places. In orbit, the council observers recorded everything. They would report back that humanity had changed. Not just survived, changed. They had taken their Deathworld origin and turned it into strength. Not strength to conquer, strength to protect. The Vryn representative who had proposed the exile watched the transmission. Its mandibles clicked softly. I tried to kill them. You failed, the Thar said beside it. And perhaps that failure saved us all. On New Reckoning, Elena stood on the wall of the colony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Freedom's Call had burned. 23 humans had died, but they had died proving something important. Humanity belonged. Not because they were strong or dangerous or unkillable, but because when the galaxy needed someone to stand between them and the darkness, humans stood, without hesitation, without question. Elena thought about the scared woman who had stood in the council chamber 5 years ago. She had accepted a death sentence with her head high. She had promised to survive, and she had kept that promise. Behind her, Hope was singing with other children. Their voices carried on the wind, songs of earth and songs of new reckoning, songs of a species that refused to die. Hope died, the council had believed. Hope died the moment humanity spoke, but they were wrong. Hope was reborn. Hope was a little girl singing on a death world. Hope was a species that learned to thrive where others could only fail. Hope was humanity proving that no matter how hard the universe tried to kill them, they would find a way to live. And now finally they would live among the stars as equals.